You're this activist. You're borderline socialist. You start watch. They're gonna have you on TV. You start watching these videos. I imagine you quit the show, or you didn't go to them and be like, "Hey, I got some things to say on this show." You know.
It was a tough time. Like, I was mortified. Like, everybody, when I tell the story now, they just view just like all the positive of it. But you have to think this is months of just turmoil of all these different things that I believed in for so long being exposed. It's just not legitimate. But it got to October and I was getting ready to fly to London, and I just had this powwow with myself. And I'm like, I can't do this. I don't stand for any of this anymore. So I called them and I just pretty much told them it just wasn't for me.
What did your friends and family think?
I didn't tell too many people I was in the process, actually, because they were pretty strict on the NDAs.
No, I mean, like, when you started discovering that a lot of the stuff you thought was not true.
Oh,
I imagine,
switch?
like, you go to your friend and you're like, I have to imagine, because I've been there, where I'm hanging out at my friend's house. I'm in California, and they're like hanging around, like drinking coffee, and then one of them just says something completely false. And then it's like, the first thing I think is like, oh, what do I do? If I come, you can't just come out and be like, you're wrong. You know what I mean? They're not going to take well to that. They want to be an authority on this political ideology. That's why they brought it up.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I had a combination of everything. A lot of my friends kind of started to make the journey with me, becoming more conservatives, because they knew how passionate I was about BLM and all the liberalism I stood for. So for me to look at it and be like, I don't know about this anymore, especially with everything happening with COVID and everyone's trust in every institution starting to be questioned, a lot of people started to just support me regardless of what it was that I stood for. On the other hand, I had people completely excommunicate me, including family members. I have a sibling I haven't spoken to in years.
Wow.
That just deleted me off of everything, hasn't spoken to me. And I have friends who have done the same thing, but I don't even view them as real friends.
I don't believe that actions like that are related to, like, I think that's evidence to the fact they know you're right. They, to a certain degree, that you're right. They're driven by social acceptance, not by fact or logic. And so they're like, you threaten their attempts to fit in, so they have to remove you. Because we don't do that. Like, the right tends not to do that. I say tends not to because, you know, it's not absolute. But the libertarian, former liberal types, the conservative types are constantly trying to tell people, like, here's what I think and why. And the left is just more like, I don't want you to say what you think. You shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, I'd say that's really, really prominent in the Black community. The Black community has a tendency to put each other in a box. And if the second you step out of that box, or as Candace Owens says, escaping the Democratic plantation, it's a huge issue. Just as far as the music you're allowed to like, the clothes you're supposed to wear, the culture, the way you talk, the way that if you speak too eloquently, you're insulted in a lot of areas in the Black community. We're even told, like, I remember being a kid, I'm in this area full of agriculture, and I was bullied by my family because I was going to take an FFA class. They talked me out of doing it. They're like, you're Black, you can't be in an agriculture class, which is so wrong to begin with for so many reasons. But Black people tend to put the shackles on our own feet. And I keep telling people within the community and outside the community that you have to stop allowing yourself to be forced into a category. You have to be able to look at the bigger picture of the world and just identify who you actually are, rather than be told who you are because of your skin color.
Man. So you made it, though, huh? PragerU hired you.
I made it. PragerU's been good to me.
And that takes a lot of courage, though, like to walk away from a support system like that. In a lot of ways, those are the people that are structurally the most supportive to your upbringing. In a lot of ways, right? Like, it's got to be very, very difficult to walk away from people that have been that instrumental in getting to you, you know, being a part of your life up until that point.
Yeah, I just had to change my mentality. I didn't walk away from them. They walked away from me.
No, since like, yeah, so you have to accept when they're going to walk away from you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's just one of those things. I realized that if I'm not willing to stand on truth and integrity, then what is it that I actually represent? Because if you don't stand for anything, you fall for everything, right? And I just want to be able to look myself in the mirror if I continue to advocate for these things just because I'm told to, rather than recognizing the research that I've done and going out and being like, you know what, this is actually the truth. I was wrong. So many people are afraid just to get online and admit that they're wrong, or even just person to person. But humility is one of the greatest things that you can possibly have.
And the media likes to shame doing your own research now. You're not supposed to do your own research anymore. That's very dangerous.
That's crazy.
It's very dangerous.
We had Winston Marshall from Mumford & Sons on that last week. And so his story is he reads books and he had like no followers. But I mean, Mumford & Sons is a huge band. No joke. Look at their discography. It's like their first album hit #2 Billboard. Then every other album was #1 when it released. They were huge. And so he tweets out, like, just read Andy No's book. Very great. Good work, Andy No. And they attacked him for it. He basically is forced to issue an apology. And then, I mean, this dude's amazing. Shout out to this guy. There's a reason why he was part of a band that rose to the top. He said he didn't want to live the lie. He couldn't live with himself knowing that he put out this fake apology. He thought to himself, what am I going to do? Go to all my friends and family and say, I believe this thing I don't actually believe. I can't do it. So he was like, he decided, you know what? Fine. To save his bandmates from this trauma, from this scandal and controversy and crisis, he's going to leave the band, and then he's going to come out publicly, retract his apology, and say, here's what I really think. So they went after him. He thought about it and said, nah, he would rather be true to himself with all of the anger and hate around him than to live a lie.